Men, let's not play dumb. You've seen it happen before. One moment she's texting all the time, asking where you are, trying to be part of your life. The next, she's distant, dry, and busy. You start chasing, you double text, you try to win her back. And just like that, the dynamic flips. You're the one afraid of losing her. That's where most men lose their power. They don't realize this. Women only chase what they fear losing. And if she doesn't fear losing you, she won't value you. It's that simple. See, women are wired to respond to emotional tension. It's not about being toxic, it's about being strategic. You don't need to manipulate. You just need to understand how to position yourself as a man who could walk away at any time. Not because you're playing games, but because you actually value yourself. The biggest mistake men make, they think being loving means being available 24/7. Wrong. That kind of behavior doesn't inspire desire. It kills it. You become predictable, boring, easy to read, and worst of all, replaceable. In this video, I'll break down 10 powerful tactics you can use to trigger that deep emotional fear inside a woman. The fear that she's losing you. Not to hurt her, but to wake her up and remind her of your value. These tactics work in today's dating world, where attention is cheap and men are being taught to beg. This isn't about pretending. It's about becoming the man she knows she could lose if she stopped showing up. That's the guy women chase. That's the guy who doesn't get left behind. Let's get into it. Number 1, pull back without warning. Most men only pull back after they've been hurt or ignored. That's too late. The key is to pull back before she expects it, while everything still feels good. This is when it hits her the hardest. She doesn't see it coming. She starts replaying everything in her head, feeling what shifted, what she did wrong, and why you suddenly feel far away. That moment of confusion creates emotional chaos, and in that chaos, the fear of losing you is born. Pulling back doesn't mean disappearing completely. It means reducing your energy, slowing your responses, and removing your emotional availability. When you're always there, always texting, always showing up, she never gets to miss you. She doesn't get a chance to sit with silence and ask herself, what's going on? That silence is powerful. Women aren't used to it from a man they like. They're used to men chasing, explaining, begging. So, when you don't do that, it shocks the system. This tactic only works if you've been consistent first. That way, she has something to compare it to. If you've been distant from day one, pulling back means nothing. But if she's been used to your presence, your interest, your attention, and then suddenly you stop pouring like you used to, her emotions get loud. She doesn't panic outwardly at first, but trust this, she notices. She refreshes the chat. She wonders if she said too much. She replays the last call. That emotional space forces her to think about you in ways she never did when you were too available. The modern dating world is noisy. Women have options, but most of those options are men who overplay their hand. They think persistence wins her. What wins her is absence that feels real, not fake games, but genuine detachment. She has to feel that she's not in control of your attention anymore. That's when she starts to reach. That's when she becomes afraid. You don't need to make a big scene or announce it. Just become busy. Focus on your life. Leave her wondering. Let the silence speak. Women fear the unknown. And when you pull back without a clear reason, that unknown becomes a louder alarm in her mind. It makes her realize what she might lose. And that realization is what flips the entire dynamic in your favor. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you pull back and she reacts, you are teaching her that your presence is not guaranteed. And that lesson is what makes her value you more. Number 2, be comfortable being silent. Silence is power. Most men ruin their position with a woman simply because they don't know how to sit with silence. They always feel the need to explain themselves, clarify what they meant, check in, or fix a vibe that doesn't even need fixing. But here's the truth. Women don't fear a man who constantly talks. They fear the one who can go quiet without losing his mind. The man who can disappear into silence without flinching communicates one thing: control. In modern dating, attention is currency. Whoever holds it longer wins. If you're always the one to break the silence, you're giving up that power. Women know that most men can't handle distance. That's why they test it. They go quiet, pull away, or act uninterested just to see if you'll chase. And most of the time, men fail this test within minutes. A woman doesn't even have to say she's annoyed or distant. A simple one-word reply is enough to make a guy send a paragraph, over-apologize, or double text. When that happens, you've shown her that your emotions are tied to her approval. A man who's comfortable being silent knows that his worth isn't tied to instant responses. He understands that emotional space creates tension, and tension creates attraction. Women need that tension. It's what makes them think, imagine, worry, and eventually crave your presence. But if every time she slows down, you rush in, you rob her of that space to miss you. Let her wonder. Let her stew in her own thoughts. If she says something confusing or vague, don't rush to clarify it. Let it sit. If she goes quiet for hours or days, match her silence without breaking a sweat. That's not cold. That's called emotional discipline, and that's rare in a world where men constantly chase validation. Here's where most guys get it wrong. They think silence is a punishment. No, it's a tool. You don't go silent to hurt her. You go silent because you don't need to overexpose yourself to stay relevant. The more mystery you hold, the more valuable you become. Every message you don't send is a question she gets to ask herself. Every hour you don't check in is a window for her curiosity to grow. Silence leaves blanks, and women hate blanks. They need to fill them. You'll know this tactic is working when she starts reaching out with questions, jokes, or sudden sweetness out of nowhere. That's her trying to break your silence without asking directly. That's her wondering where your attention went, and that wondering is fear. Not fear that you're dangerous, but fear that she's no longer in control of your emotional response. If you want a woman to fear losing you, you have to show her that you're perfectly fine not hearing from her. Most men can't do that. That's why most men get ignored. Don't be most men. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you master silence, you are exercising that power. You are not letting her moods or her silence dictate your state. You are grounded in yourself, and that grounding is what makes her feel the weight of your absence. Number 3, cultivate your exclusivity. Let me tell you something most men overlook. Women are not drawn to what's always available. They're drawn to what's rare, what's earned, what's not begging to be chosen. And that's why exclusivity is power. When a man positions himself as selective, not just in dating, but in every area of life, he instantly stands apart. It's not about pretending to be high value. It's about actually becoming high value. And when you do, your time becomes a privilege, not a guarantee. Your attention becomes something she works to earn, not something you hand over just because she smiled at you twice. Most guys are afraid to be perceived as distant, but here's the thing. A man who doesn't offer himself to every woman is the man every woman wants. That exclusivity creates psychological weight. It taps into a primal part of her mind that says, if I don't hold on to him, someone else will. Now, this isn't about being arrogant or playing some childish game. It's about cultivating a life so full, so rich with purpose, growth, ambition, peace, that any woman who wants in has to actually show up with something meaningful. And when she realizes that, she shifts. Her energy changes. Her attention sharpens. Because women don't chase men who are desperate. They chase men who know their worth and don't hand it out for free. Think about the last time you were around a man who truly respected his time. Not rude, not dismissive, just grounded, present, unavailable to drama. That man had presence. That's what I'm talking about. You become that kind of man by setting standards, not just in how people treat you, but in what you allow into your space. Who gets access to your mind, your energy, your body? Exclusivity isn't about isolation, it's about discernment. It's about building a life so dialed in, so focused, that anyone who tries to come close realizes they need to bring value, not beauty, not seduction, value. Because you're not just here for a good time, you're here for depth, for alignment, for something real. The Stoic man doesn't prove his worth, he lives it quietly, confidently. He doesn't explain why he's not chasing, he simply doesn't chase. And that silence, that absence of need, It's deafening to a woman who's used to being pursued. That's what makes you unforgettable. Let her feel that you are different. Let her feel that your validation is not free, that your time is not common, that you are a man with options, but more importantly, a man with direction. When she senses that, she'll start to question. She'll start to wonder, why isn't he like the others? And that's when it begins, that pull, that magnetic tension. The fear of losing you isn't created by you trying harder, it's created by you walking your path without needing her to follow. You see, when a man operates from abundance, not scarcity, he doesn't fear loss. He's okay with people leaving because he knows his value doesn't shrink. And that energy, that unwavering self-respect, it makes her look at you differently, not like someone to entertain, but like someone she doesn't want to risk losing. And here's the part most men miss. When you live like this, you don't have to say a word. Your actions speak louder than anything. You're not posting to make her jealous. You're not texting to get her attention. You're simply living fully, boldly, on your own terms. And that is what triggers her deepest fear that she's not as important to you as you are to her. Let that sink in. If you're always there, always available, always yes, no matter what, she never has to question, never has to chase, never has to value. But when you stand still, solid in your masculinity, in your purpose, in your exclusivity, she starts paying attention. Number 4, stop explaining yourself. If there's one trait that silently drains a man's power in the eyes of a woman, it's over-explaining. You think you're being open, being honest, being a good guy. But what you're really doing, especially when it's not asked for, is showing insecurity. When you constantly feel the need to explain why you said something, why you did something, or why you didn't text back right away, you're not coming off as thoughtful. You're coming off as unsure. Now listen, there's a difference between healthy communication and overcompensation. A man who respects himself doesn't feel the urge to justify every move he makes. He stands on what he said. He owns what he did. And if someone doesn't like it, that's not his problem to solve. This doesn't mean you act like a jerk or avoid conversations. It means you learn when silence says more, when confidence doesn't need words. Because here's what most men don't realize. Every time you over-explain, you're subconsciously seeking approval. You're asking for her to say, "It's okay." And the moment you do that, the dynamic shifts. You move from being the man she respects to the man who seeks permission to be himself. A Stoic man understands that explaining yourself constantly is a form of submission. It's a subtle admission that you're afraid she might misinterpret you, judge you, or worse, leave you. But if your value is internal, if your self-worth doesn't fluctuate based on how she reacts, then you simply stop needing to explain. You just act. You move. You lead. And you trust that those who understand will. Those who don't, they're free to leave. Let me give you a real example. Imagine you decide not to respond to a message for a few hours because you're deep into your work or gym or whatever mission you're on. When you do reply, she says something like, "Oh, too busy for me now." Most guys fall right into the trap. They say, No, I was just caught up doing this and that." And the list starts. That's exactly what dilutes your presence. The better move, you just say, "Yeah, I've been focused." Period. Not cold, not defensive, just matter of fact. That subtle confidence sends a message louder than any paragraph-long explanation ever could. It says, "My time matters. My purpose comes first. I don't need to be understood to feel okay about myself." And guess what? That's the man she can't forget because he doesn't try to make her feel comfortable with his identity. He just lives it. And that kind of energy, it's addictive. It's rare. It's magnetic. The truth is, the man who doesn't explain himself every time a woman pushes back, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability creates mystery. Mystery breeds curiosity. And curiosity is what keeps her thinking about you when you're not around. Explaining everything makes you safe. It makes you easy, predictable, known. But when you carry yourself with that silent confidence, when you act with purpose and let your actions speak, she starts watching you differently. She wonders what you're really thinking, why you're not reacting, why you're not rattled. And that makes you unforgettable. You don't need to justify your schedule. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to justify your standards. When she tests them, And she will, you don't fold. You stand firm, not to prove anything to her, but because they're your standards. You don't explain your boundaries, you enforce them. Now, I know what some men will say, but won't she think I'm cold or distant? Maybe. But let her feel that. Let her wrestle with the contrast. Because when a man doesn't chase validation, doesn't explain himself, and doesn't overcompensate, he creates emotional polarity. And emotional polarity is what pulls her in. Women don't fall for men who seek permission. They fall for men who move with conviction. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you stop seeking acceptance. And when you stop seeking acceptance, you start radiating power. Number 5, be willing to walk away. If there's one thing that resets the power dynamic in any relationship, it's this: being willing to walk away. Not as a threat, not as a game, but as a deep, unshakable truth within you. Because the moment a woman senses that you're scared to lose her, she knows she can control the frame. And once she controls the frame, you stop being the man she respects. Now, let me be clear, walking away doesn't mean slamming doors or giving ultimatums. That's drama. That's ego. What I'm talking about is presence. The kind of presence that says, I want you, but I don't need you. Because needing her attention, her validation, her affection makes you dependent. And dependence is the opposite of power. Most men confuse desire with attachment. You can deeply desire a woman and still remain detached. That's what Stoicism teaches. You can appreciate beauty, connection, even love, and still be centered in yourself. Still be ready to let go if respect is lost. That's real strength. That's rare. And that's exactly why it's so attractive. Women don't forget the man who was willing to walk away, not to punish her, but to protect his peace. The man who didn't cling, the man who didn't beg, the man who didn't fight to convince her to stay. Why? Because that man signals one thing: high value. And in the world of human psychology, we chase what we perceive as valuable. Let me paint the picture. She pulls back. She tests you. She gives you attitude or disrespects you in subtle ways. Most guys get reactive. They explain. They chase. They try to fix it. And in doing so, they kill the polarity. But the man who doesn't react, who doesn't flinch, who simply distances himself with calm detachment, throws her off balance. She starts questioning her own power, her own importance. And that's when attraction spikes. There's an old Stoic phrase, you own nothing that you're not willing to lose. Think about that. If you're not willing to lose her, you don't own your power. You've already handed it over. The true test isn't what you say when things are going well. It's how you respond when she pulls away, when she disrespects your values, when she starts trying to see how far you'll bend. Do you fold? Or do you walk? And walking doesn't always mean leaving the relationship. Sometimes it's walking away from an argument, walking away from unnecessary drama, walking away from emotional manipulation. The key is your actions must say, I choose peace over chaos. I choose self-respect over validation. I choose me. And here's the secret. That energy, it's rare. Most men are emotionally tangled, constantly seeking harmony at the expense of strength. But a man who holds his frame, who stays centered and silent when it matters, that man becomes unforgettable. The reason this works so powerfully is because it creates scarcity. When she feels you could leave at any time, not because you don't care, but because you won't tolerate disrespect, she realizes you're not like the rest. She realizes you can't be manipulated, that you're not going to dance for her approval, that you're grounded in something deeper. That's what every woman fears losing. Not the guy who sends flowers every day or texts good morning religiously. She fears losing the man who could walk away at any moment and never look back. The man who won't chase, the man who already has a mission, a life, a direction, and she either fits into it or she doesn't. You never teach someone to value you by arguing with them. You teach them by showing what life looks like without your energy in it. And when she feels that absence, when she realizes you won't fight to be kept, she starts fighting to keep you. That's the paradox. Women chase the man who doesn't need to be chased. They commit to the man who isn't afraid to lose them. They remember the man who made them feel they were never in full control. Be willing to walk away. That's how you become the one she never forgets. Number 6, give her less than she expects. This one breaks a lot of rules that men have been taught. You've probably been conditioned to think that if you want a woman to stay, to be happy, to feel secure, you have to constantly give. Give time, give compliments, give validation, give gifts, give attention. But here's the hard truth. When you give more than she expects, especially early on, you don't increase her desire, you smother it. Human psychology doesn't work like a vending machine, especially not female psychology. It's not about input equals output. It's about tension, pacing, unpredictability. And when a man gives her exactly what she expects, or more too soon, too easily, she loses interest. She doesn't feel the challenge. She doesn't feel the mystery. She feels full. And once a woman is full, she stops reaching. Now, let me be very clear. This isn't about being cold. This isn't about playing games. This is about preserving your gravity, your center, your mystery. It's about giving her just enough to pull her closer, but not so much that she feels like she's already got you wrapped around her finger. Think about it like this. If a woman expects a 10, give her a 7. If she expects constant texting, text less. If she expects you to always be available on the weekends, let her find out you're busy sometimes. If she expects you to explain your every thought, let her sit in the silence. That space between what she wants and what she gets, that's where attraction lives. A man who gives less than expected creates curiosity, and curiosity is emotional fuel. It keeps her mind looping, guessing, wondering. Is he thinking about me? Why didn't he respond right away? Why didn't he compliment my outfit tonight? These aren't signs she's losing interest. These are signs she's hooked because the mind obsesses over the incomplete. And when she doesn't fully know what she means to you, she starts working harder to prove her value. Now, here's where a lot of guys get it wrong. They think giving more means she'll reciprocate more, but it often has the opposite effect. The more you give without requiring her effort, the less she feels she has to earn you, and the less she earns you, the less she values you. That's just human nature. Stoicism teaches us to master ourselves, to delay gratification, to stay emotionally anchored. That applies here more than ever. When you pull back a little, not out of punishment, but out of strength, you give her room to lean in. You let her experience the void. You let her realize she's not entitled to your energy, that she has to earn it. You don't feed the fire by dumping gasoline on it. You feed it by controlling the oxygen. Keep the flame alive with moments of presence, then pull back. Show care, but don't overshare. Be there, but not always. That contrast, that rhythm, that's what keeps her emotionally invested. And here's something most men never realize. When you give less than expected, she starts investing more. More time, more thought, more emotion. Because she wants to tip the scale back in her favor. And that's when real attraction happens. Not when you're doing everything right, but when she feels slightly off balance. Just enough to make her chase. So, how do you do this in real life? You delay your responses. You don't flood her with praise. You let her initiate sometimes. You don't rearrange your life every time she calls. You hold your frame. And most importantly, you stay grounded in the belief that your value doesn't depend on how much you give. It depends on who you are. Because pleasing is not leading. And when you stop trying to meet every expectation, you become the man who sets the standard. The man who keeps her intrigued. The man she doesn't quite have figured out. That's the man she talks about. The man she remembers. The man she chases. You give less than she expects, not to withhold love, but to make her earn yours. And when she earns it, she never forgets it. Number 7, detach emotionally. This one's going to sting for some men because we've been taught that love means pouring everything in. That real commitment means feeling everything deeply and showing it constantly. But here's the hard truth. The more emotionally entangled you are with her behavior, her mood swings, her silence, her attention or lack of it, the more power you give away. And women feel that. They feel when a man's center is dictated by their reaction. And it kills attraction. Emotional detachment isn't coldness. It's not apathy. It's composure. It's knowing that whatever happens, you don't lose yourself. You don't spiral. You don't beg. You don't chase. You observe. You respond. You lead. A woman can sense when a man is emotionally dependent, When your day is ruined because she didn't text back. When your mood shifts because she didn't smile at you the way you wanted. That's emotional fragility. And no woman stays attracted to a man she has emotional control over. But when you detach, when you stop taking everything personally, when you stop reacting to every wave of her emotions, something powerful happens. She starts leaning in. She starts wondering. She starts craving your attention again because she realizes she doesn't own it. Let me give you an example. Let's say she starts pulling away. She's colder, less affectionate. Most men panic. They overtext. They ask what's wrong. They get emotional. But the man who's emotionally detached, he notices the shift. He doesn't ignore it, but he doesn't chase it either. He pulls back. He focuses on his purpose. He lets her come to him. And if she doesn't, he accepts it with clarity, with dignity, without drama. That's the essence of Stoicism in action. You are not your emotions. You have them. You feel them, but they do not control your behavior. And when a man lives this way, he becomes incredibly attractive because he becomes rare. A woman cannot test a man who doesn't react. She cannot control a man who doesn't flinch. She cannot manipulate a man who values his peace more than her validation. That's power, silent power, and it speaks louder than any words you could ever say. Now, I'm not saying you should never show emotion. I'm saying don't make your emotional world dependent on hers. Don't build your identity around her attention. Don't measure your worth by her affection. Your detachment tells her, I want you, but I don't need you to be whole. And that statement, even if unspoken, triggers something deep in her because most men can't offer that. Most men give their whole emotional world away at the first sign of affection. They become addicted to the high. And when it fades, they panic. But you won't. You'll breathe. You'll ground yourself. You'll say to yourself, she's not my peace. I am. And that makes all the difference. This doesn't mean you let bad behavior slide. It means you don't meet disrespect with desperation. You meet it with space, with silence, with boundaries. When you detach emotionally, you break the need to fix everything. You stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to manage her perceptions. You just live as a man, on your path, on purpose. That's stillness, that's centeredness, that's magnetic. A woman will never fear losing a man who loses himself over her, but she will think twice about losing the man who can walk away with grace, without drama, and without regret. That man, he's unforgettable. Number 8, let her chase the mystery. A woman will forget the guy who gave it all up front, but she'll never forget the one who stayed a little unreadable. The man who had layers, the one who didn't put every emotion, every plan, every thought on the table. Why? Because mystery isn't confusion. Mystery is tension, and tension fuels desire. When you're too available, too open, too emotionally naked from the start, she feels like she's already seen the movie. She knows how it ends, and she loses interest. But when you hold something back, when you let her wonder what you're thinking, where your mind is, what drives you, you spark her imagination. And once a woman's imagination is engaged, she's in. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding polarity. Desire doesn't grow in certainty. It grows in curiosity. And mystery is the fuel. Think about the last time you saw a man in control, not just of the situation, but of himself. He didn't overshare. He didn't oversell. He simply was calm, present, unbothered. You noticed how others responded to him, right? That's the same energy women respond to. When she doesn't know everything about you, she invests more mental energy trying to figure you out. That's emotional engagement. That's attraction. And most men give that away. They think over-explaining earns trust. It doesn't. What earns her trust is consistency, not confession. Your mystery isn't just what you say, it's how you live. Are you always talking about your goals, or are you out achieving them quietly? Do you respond instantly to every text, or do you give space? Do you feel the need to fill silence with noise, or are you comfortable just being? When you carry yourself like a man who doesn't need to be understood to feel validated, she starts chasing clarity. She starts chasing you. Now, here's the truth. The more masculine your energy, the less you need to explain. The less predictable you are, the more she wants to understand you. But the second you make her the center of your world, the mystery fades. And once it's gone, it's hard to get back. So, live your life fully, stay unpredictable in the best way. Let her feel your presence, but not your full story. Not yet. Let her chase the man who doesn't rush to be known, because that's the man she can't stop thinking about. Number 9, show up selectively. There's a quiet kind of power in being a man who doesn't show up for everything, not because he's playing hard to get, but because his time, his energy, and his presence aren't up for grabs. He shows up when it matters, and when he does, people feel it. She feels it. You see, when you're constantly available, when you're always texting back, always saying yes, always around you, become background noise, predictable, expected. And what's expected rarely excites. What pulls a woman in is the contrast. When your presence feels like a reward, not a routine, that's what showing up selectively really means. It's not about ignoring her, it's about making sure your presence carries weight, that when you walk in, it means something, that you've got things going on. You've got purpose, discipline, and direction, and she's part of your life, not the center of it. Think of it this way. When a man is too easy to reach, he signals that he's not busy, not focused, not driven, that he has time to waste. And time to a masculine man is sacred. It's the currency of growth, of mission, of building something bigger than himself. So, when you guard your time, she doesn't feel neglected, she feels intrigued. Why is he not texting back immediately? What is he doing right now? Who is he with? Is he thinking about me? That mystery hooks her attention, and when you finally do reach out, it hits differently. Because it's not just a message, it's a signal. A reminder that you've chosen to open a window into your life, not because you need her attention, but because she's earned a glimpse into your world. But here's the key. When you do show up, be present. Don't half show, don't multitask, be all there. That balance between selective presence and full attention is what makes you unforgettable. It tells her you're not seeking approval, you're not desperate, you're grounded. And women remember that. You're not chasing, you're choosing. And when you live like that, when you hold your time sacred and show up with intention, you shift the dynamic. She starts to wonder how to get more of your time. She starts adjusting to your rhythm, and that's when the chase begins. Number 10, lead without needing her response. Let me tell you something most men get wrong. They lead, but they keep checking over their shoulder to see if she approves, if she smiles, if she follows. And the moment she doesn't, they hesitate, they adjust, they soften. That's not leadership. That's people-pleasing in disguise. A man who truly leads doesn't wait for her to clap. He moves because that's who he is. His direction is not conditional on her reaction. He doesn't lead to impress her. He leads because it's his natural state. And here's the part that flips the entire game. Women are wired to respond to masculine certainty. Not to force, not to control, but to a man who knows where he's going and doesn't flinch when she doubts, questions, or tests him, because she will test you. Not to break you, but to feel you. To see if you bend, to see if your spine is solid or hollow. That's why this point matters so much. Leading without needing her reaction builds an energy that makes her lean in. It creates space where she can feel your direction and decide if she wants to come along, not because you asked her to, but because she trusts it. That's what turns her on. A man with vision, conviction, and stillness. He's not thrown by her silence. He's not shaken by her delay. He keeps moving. In practice, that looks like this. You make decisions without seeking her approval. You initiate plans without waiting for a green light. You express yourself without cushioning your truth. And when she pulls back to test if you'll chase, you don't. You keep walking in your path. That's the kind of presence that makes her nervous in a good way. That's the kind of energy that stays with her long after you've left the room. Stoic philosophy teaches that your peace must come from within. That the opinion of others, especially in matters of love, should never control your center. And when you apply that to relationships, something incredible happens. You stop trying to earn her. You start standing in your own worth. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're clear. So, remember this. A woman remembers the man who didn't flinch when she hesitated. The one who didn't beg, explain, or shrink himself. The one who kept leading with or without her applause. If that's who you're becoming, keep leading. Because the man who moves without needing permission is the one they never forget. If you watch this far, you already know most men never learn how to hold their power. But you're not most men. You're here, absorbing, applying, and leveling up. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that join button if you're ready to take this mindset deeper. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.